Listen, Cowboys Nation, I want you to lock in for a moment because what I'm about to talk about today might actually be one of the most interesting developments we've heard surrounding the Dallas Cowboys and the upcoming NFL Draft. For weeks now, it feels like the conversation around the Cowboys has been filled with frustration, speculation, and a whole lot of disappointment. Fans have been dreaming about massive blockbuster moves, imagining scenarios where Dallas somehow lands elite defensive stars like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, and every time a rumor started floating around the internet, people started believing maybe, just maybe, Jerry Jones was about to shock the league. But then reality would hit. The rumors would cool off, the news cycle would slow down, and fans would once again hear the same message repeated everywhere. The Cowboys probably aren't making that huge splash move everyone is waiting for. And honestly, a lot of fans have been telling creators and analysts the same thing over and over again. They keep saying, stop getting our hopes up. Stop making it sound like something big is about to happen. Stop acting like Dallas is going to pull off some miracle trade or suddenly start spending like crazy in free agency. But today, the conversation changed a little bit. And the reason it changed isn't because of a rumor on social media or a random fan theory floating around online. The reason the conversation changed is because one of the most respected draft analysts in football, Daniel Jeremiah, said something that Cowboys fans simply cannot ignore. And what he said could completely reshape how people look at Dallas's position in the upcoming draft. According to Daniel Jeremiah, there is a real possibility that one of the most intriguing defensive prospects in the entire draft class could still be on the board when the Cowboys are on the clock at pick number 12. And that player is Caleb Downs. Now, if you've been following the draft process closely, you already know that Caleb Downs has been one of the most talked about defensive players coming out of college football. From the moment he stepped onto the field at University of Alabama, people inside the program started whispering about how special he could become. Coaches talked about his instincts. Teammates talked about his leadership. Scouts talked about his football intelligence. And, over time, those whispers turned into something much louder, as analysts began realizing that this might be one of the smartest and most versatile defensive players entering the league in years. What makes this situation fascinating for Cowboys fans is the fact that for a long time it felt like landing Caleb Downs was nothing more than a dream scenario. When the draft process first began, most projections had him going very early. Some analysts believed he could easily be selected inside the top 5. Others thought there was no way he would fall outside the top 10. So when people started talking about the possibility of Dallas drafting him, it felt more like wishful thinking than an actual possibility. It was one of those conversations fans have when they imagine the perfect draft outcome, even though they know the odds are slim. But as the weeks have gone by and the draft process has evolved, something interesting has started to happen. Teams around the league have begun overthinking the safety position again. It happens almost every year. When teams evaluate defensive backs, they sometimes become obsessed with measurable traits like speed, height, and weight. Suddenly, the conversation shifts from who the best football player is to who ran the fastest 40-yard dash or who had the most eye-popping workout at the combine. That shift can cause incredibly talented players to slide down the board, even when their actual film tells a completely different story. And we've seen it happen before. Look back at players like Derwin James or Kyle Hamilton. Both were considered elite defensive prospects, yet neither ended up going inside the top 10 despite their obvious talent. Teams simply convinced themselves that the positional value wasn't high enough or that other prospects offered more athletic upside. That's exactly the kind of situation that could allow Caleb Downs to slip further down the board than people initially expected. Jeremiah explained that while he personally ranks Downs as one of the best players in the entire draft class, the safety position has historically been unpredictable when it comes to draft day. Some teams hesitate to spend premium picks on safeties, especially if the player doesn't have overwhelming physical measurements. Downs isn't the tallest safety. He isn't the heaviest player at the position. He doesn't have the kind of combine numbers that instantly dominate highlight reels. But what he does have might be even more valuable in today's NFL. He has elite instincts, elite awareness, and an understanding of the game that allows him to play faster than many players who are technically more athletic. That's the part that should make Cowboys fans pay attention. Because if you've been watching how Dallas is trying to reshape its defense, you know the coaching staff is looking for players who can process information quickly and make smart decisions on the field. The defensive philosophy is built around communication, discipline, and versatility. And that's exactly where Caleb Downs shines. He's the kind of defensive back who can line up in multiple positions. One play, he can drop deep and patrol the middle of the field. The next play, he can step into the box and help stop the run. He can cover tight ends, help in the slot, or rotate into complex coverage schemes that confuse quarterbacks. His versatility turns him into something more than just a safety. He becomes a defensive chess piece that coordinators can move all over the field depending on the situation. When scouts talk about Downs, many of them highlight how rarely he wastes movement. Watch his film, and you'll notice something immediately. He's almost always in the right place at the right time. He doesn't panic. He doesn't take unnecessary steps. He reads the play, processes what the offense is trying to do, and reacts with precision. That kind of awareness is incredibly valuable in the NFL, where offenses are becoming more complex every year. Quarterbacks are reading defenses faster, coordinators are designing trickier schemes, and defenders who can quickly diagnose what's happening are worth their weight in gold. Now imagine what happens if a player like Caleb Downs joins a defense that already has elite talent in certain areas. Think about players like Micah Parsons, who has already established himself as one of the most explosive defenders in the league. Parsons changes the game with his ability to pressure quarterbacks and disrupt offenses. But even with a player like Parsons on the roster, the Cowboys' defense has sometimes struggled with consistency across all three levels. There have been moments where the pass rush dominates but the secondary breaks down. Other times the coverage holds up but the defensive front fails to generate pressure. The goal for Dallas moving forward should be building balance across the entire defense so that every level supports the others. That's where the draft becomes so important. Instead of chasing one specific type of player, the Cowboys need to focus on building a complete defensive unit. A defense that can pressure the quarterback, stop the run, and cover the field effectively. If you look at the way the league's best defenses operate, they aren't built around just one superstar. They're built around systems where multiple players understand their roles and communicate seamlessly. Caleb Downs fits perfectly into that vision because of how he elevates the players around him. Analysts often describe him as a force multiplier. That means his presence on the field doesn't just improve his own performance, it helps everyone else perform better as well because he organizes the defense and keeps everyone aligned. During a recent appearance discussing the draft, Daniel Jeremiah was asked about Downs' potential landing spots. And when he talked about the range where the player might realistically be selected, something surprising came up. Jeremiah said that while he considers Downs a top 10 player in terms of pure talent, he could realistically see him falling to the Cowboys at pick number 12. That statement alone instantly caught the attention of Cowboys fans across the internet. Because suddenly, the dream scenario didn't feel like a fantasy anymore. It felt like something that could legitimately happen if the draft board unfolds a certain way. Think about that for a moment. A player many analysts believe might be the most complete defensive prospect in the entire draft class potentially sitting there when Dallas is on the clock. That's the kind of opportunity that can change the direction of a franchise. Because if you land a defender with that level of intelligence and versatility, you're not just adding another player to the roster. You're adding someone who can become the central communicator in your defensive system for years to come. And this is where the excitement starts building among Cowboys fans. Imagine a secondary where a player like Caleb Downs works alongside experienced defensive backs who already understand the league. Imagine him reading the offense before the snap, calling out adjustments, rotating into position, and shutting down plays before they even develop. That's the kind of impact that doesn't always show up in highlight reels, but makes an enormous difference over the course of a season. Of course, there will always be debate about whether the Cowboys should prioritize other positions in the draft. Some fans want a dominant edge rusher. Others believe the team still needs help at linebacker or along the defensive line. Those conversations are completely valid because building a championship roster requires strength in multiple areas. But if you have the chance to draft a player who could become the defensive brain of your team, that opportunity is difficult to pass up. The NFL draft is unpredictable. Every year, players slide further than expected while others rise unexpectedly due to workouts, interviews, or team needs. That unpredictability is exactly why Cowboys fans should pay attention to what Daniel Jeremiah said. Because if teams ahead of Dallas decide to prioritize other positions, and if the safety market continues to be undervalued during the draft process, there's a genuine chance that Caleb Downs could still be available at pick 12. And if that happens, the Cowboys front office will face a very interesting decision. Do they stick with their original plan and target another position, or do they seize the opportunity to draft one of the smartest defensive players in the entire class and potentially reshape the future of their defense? That question is exactly what makes this draft scenario so fascinating for Cowboys fans. Because for the first time in weeks, instead of hearing about dreams that were never realistic, fans are discussing a possibility that actually has a foundation in real analysis from one of the most respected voices in the draft world. And sometimes, in the unpredictable world of the NFL draft, that's all it takes for something special to happen.